Welcome to Just Between Us, a podcast powered by the Cory Johnson Program for Post-Traumatic Healing in Boston.
Every week, we focus on ways to heal from the devastating impact of collective trauma on our world.
My name is Reverend Liz Walker.
My name is Jadelle Cummins.
Our guest today is Prentice Crowell, one of the members of our trauma team. Prentice has an amazing story that I am looking forward to hearing. He's a recovery coach at Harbor Hospital in Jamaica Plain and a founding member of Safe and Sound Recovery Center with the Boston Public Health Center. And so, Prentice, we are so grateful that you're here, and we thank you for sharing your story with us. Tell us a little bit about your recovery journey. How long have you been in recovery? And tell me what that means, recovery.
Well, recovery for me, it starts with the fact that from the time I was 26 on up, I was addicted to methamphetamine. 26, 27, 28, I started using. And it kind of just turned my life upside down. And I really didn't I thought things were okay. I thought I was, doing what I'm supposed to be doing. But my life just went downhill and my family kind of fell apart. In 2016, my stepson was murdered outside of Marin City, California, and I was strung out on drugs, but I was the first one to find the body, and he was my stepson. He turned 17, but I had raised him since the time he was like a baby. So, here I saw this young man, this baby, in my mind, become a young man and then be brutally taken away from us. And it just did something to me. It shocked me back into, reality. And I realized that this kid died because, he died over a bag of marijuana that he found and he wouldn't give back to the people who put it there. And we live all our lives smoking weed and drinking, and me and his mother doing hard drugs, and just the fact that he grew up in a place where it was all right to use and sell drugs, and I realized that that's what killed him. And so I was strung out, and so it took me some time to get away from where I was at. But when I did, I didn't want to use no more. I didn't want it because I knew if I did, I would start reliving that, Because I was still reliving it, but because I put the drug down, I could kind of put it over here on the shelf. But I knew if I went there, it'd be like picking it back up, and I'd start that cycle again. And I just didn't want to do it. But I also knew I wasn't strong enough to stay away from it. I wasn't strong enough to. It had been a pattern for me up until then, or I would get some clean time, but I would get thrown back into a position where I was in the neighborhood where it was at. And there were times when I actually, I tried to not pick up, but I was still drinking, I was still smoking weed. But it seemed like every time I turned around, somebody had a methamphetamine pipe and they were burning it. And so I would just fall back into it. And I knew that was going to happen again. And I was blessed to have lived out here. I'm from Northern California. I was in Sacramento at the time. And I was homeless. I fell out with my family. I was jumping in and out of garbage cans, looking for bottles, and cans to buy alcohol and weed every day. I was still using every day. I just wasn't using the drug that really, really was to my detriment. But like I said again, I knew I was going to use again. I lived out here 20 years ago. I went to Berklee College of Music and lived out here for a while. And so I knew I didn't know nobody out here who was doing it. And as far as I knew, there really wasn't a lot of meth out here. Coincidentally, you can go outside probably right now and get it. Since I've been here 7 years ago, and I've seen it, kind of watch it catch on. And I kind of think that that's why, one of the reasons why God sent me out here was to sort of be able to be, an example for people that were just now catching on to this really, really deadly and addictive drug. That a lot of people don't make it. It's really, really hard to stay away from, And I was blessed to get hooked up with the Boston Health Commission, Doug Lomax, who's a member of your guys' trauma team. and just found a new way of living clean, you know what I mean? Living a life, living a purpose-filled life. And so now I'm a recovery coach. I know I'm saying a lot.
No, we're hanging on every word, so it's fine.
It's just recovery for me is just, not going backwards in my life. I come from a long line of alcoholics and addicts. I used to say, I'm 7th generation, 8th generation out of slavery alcoholic, you know what I mean? Because I could trace my people back to slavery. And we all use something, and I kind of feel like it's a generational trauma too, that a lot of people, drugs and alcohol are our new chains. It was they chained us up in boats and they chained, and they forced us to work. But when they let us free, we thought being free was doing what the master did, and the master got, he drank and he did whatever he wanted to do. And so we didn't, we really didn't claim real freedom. Real freedom is being free from everything, even things that you like to do that sort of shackle you and chain you and force you into somebody you don't want to be.
So can you take us back just one moment? You said you started using when you were 26. What drew you in? I mean, I think you hinted to, you come from a long line of family members who, was into drugs as well and alcohol. But what drew you in? Was it that? And maybe it was that.
It really was, because I left here. I was here in Boston from 93 to 96. I was 26 when I went home. And I got a job at the hospital I was born in, and I was doing well. I picked up smoking weed and drinking just out here in college. But like I said, my family was big, in this whole drug scene out there, and everybody was doing it out there. And actually, my ex-wife, I hooked up with a lady who had 3 children, and then we had 2 kids together, and that was one thing that she did. She sold meth, and I just picked it up out of boredom, out of curiosity. I don't know, but yeah.
One of the things that we have been talking about in recent weeks is the death of Michael Williams, the actor who was on The Wire. I don't know if you're aware of this, and brilliant actor who played Omar in that television series. And there have been so many tributes to him, and he had an addiction, and that's what took his life. And I think it baffled me that here's this guy who gets this, he's a star, he's a movie star. How can you stay in an addiction? But I don't think we know how difficult it is to get out of addiction. What is it why is it so hard?
I would say it's so difficult to get out because it's so easy to get in. It's everywhere. We live in the culture of substance use. If you listen to music now, especially what the rap, the hip hop community is singing, they're singing about using and selling drugs, and it has just become a norm. And he's not the only one. There's so many more out there who are using. I remember when they first started training me in peer recovery supports, they said that out of the 23 billion people or million people who probably use in America, only about 100 or 300,000 actually look to get help. Yeah, we live in a culture, we live in a society that says it's okay to use. And that's from the top down. It starts at the pharmaceutical companies and the doctors. They say 80% of doctors are on something, and they're farming it out to their patients, and that's a lot how the whole opioid epidemic got started. Is here, take these Oxycontins, take these Percocets, they'll kill the pain. We live in a culture where we don't want to feel no pain. We want things to be easy, and things ain't supposed to be easy.
No,
we're supposed to feel pain.
Right. So we're talking about culture and how culture kind of plays a role in keeping people in that space of addiction. What music were you listening to besides, the people around you?
Well, I'm a rock and roll guy. So sex, drugs, and rock and roll. That's how they feed it to you. I don't think that music has so much an effect, or even just pop culture. It's more of a reflection than it is an influence. Think about the '60s. And the tune in and turn out and drop out. That was just them embracing something that was already going on from, the 20s, the roaring 20s. People like to party, you know what I mean? And people like to escape reality, And I think the powers that be tried to demonize and criminalize things basically because of race. They tried to they criminalized marijuana because of Mexicans. They criminalized cocaine because of black men. But it wasn't. It ain't never been just one people. They did it with the Chinese with heroin. It's never been just one people. White folks do drugs too.
Mm-hmm. One thing you said that really struck me is that we're all trying to get away from the pain, and I preach about that all the time. I absolutely agree with you. But we may not think about recovery as it is impacted by trauma. That's pain. That's what trauma is. Yeah. But you're in our program. So what's the connection? I mean, is it that intense kind of pain that drives people to drugs or what?
I think it's part of it is physical pain. Part of it is, emotional pain, angst. I attribute to a lot of, lack of fulfillment, and that's sort of been my journey, is filling up my life with positive things so that I won't go, because if you don't have anything to grab onto, you'll catch a ride on any train smoking, no pun intended. But a lot of it has just because people aren't fulfilled, emotionally and mentally, We think that money, or flash cars or flash clothes are going to make us happy, but they don't make us happy. They just make us look good.
Hey, you sound like a preacher. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
You do sound like I mean, you know that we're all trying to fill up the holes.
Yeah.
Do you think of it as a spiritual kind of?
Oh yeah, definitely a spiritual gap.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, they think spirituality is going to church on Sunday, and I'm not knocking church on Sunday, especially in a house of God. But spirituality is how we treat each other and how we treat ourselves and how we go through life. And can we appreciate the little things? That I woke up in the morning and I feel good.
In your recovery process, while you were on this journey to healing, what tools did you use to help you keep your eyes fixed on your goal?
It's funny because I used my tweak. And people, I don't know if you've ever heard that term, tweak. People who use drugs, especially methamphetamine, they call them tweakers. But everybody has a tweak, and that tweak can be, some people take apart cars and put them back together, or they don't put them back together. They just take apart stuff. Some people draw, some people write. For me, it was working out and practicing martial arts. And I got into Aikido right before I started using. I mean, like right before I started using. As a matter of fact, I probably started using maybe a month after I started class. And so I would get high and start working out and start practicing and going, in fantasy land in my mind, you know what I mean? But that's what I did. Unfortunately, when you come down off a drug like that, you lose interest in all these things. You don't have the energy to get there. So when I started to get clean, that's what I would do. I would work out and I would meditate, you know what I mean? And I'd practice. And I started to rebuild my body, you know what I mean? And my mind stayed strong. I think that kept my mind. I know it saved my life actually at a time when I probably would have gone off and done something really dumb and something really destructive. It helped me to calm down and to focus that aggression into something else. And so actually that's kind of what I got into out here. I practice Aikido at a dojo out here in Hyde Park, Boston Aikikai. And but that's my goal I'd like to become an Aikido instructor along with having my own recovery program that's connected to it, you know what I mean? Because that's where recovery is going. It's not it's always going to be NA and AA and the 12 steps, and that stuff is great. You know, I've learned a lot from that. But it's become a lot more of a mental, physical, spiritual journey, and filling those mental, spiritual, gaps with something.
What do you think the Cory Johnson program contributes to this? Now, because we have these weekly gatherings and you can come in, and now we're doing them on Zoom, and you can talk about your pain. How does that serve, or does it serve people who are in recovery?
Oh, yeah. Well, I know it gave me a safe space to be able to talk about my stepson passing. I'll never forget when I sort of was able to get that, because I never talked to anybody before about it. And then meeting so many mothers who have lost children, it just, really makes you feel like you're not alone in that whole, when it comes to loss. And I think also with the whole pandemic, that's how we've stayed connected, is meeting every Thursday, and then the men's group every other Friday. Connection is where it's at, Doug Lomax, my mentor, and I love the guy, and learned so much from him. He told me one time, he said, we were at this class, and they were talking about how addiction is a disconnection, and the cure for it is connection. And a light bulb went off in my head, you know what I mean? Because addiction always isolated me, and kept me away from, I don't want to deal with these people, you know what I mean? I don't want people getting close to me. I don't want people to know me. I've been able to let people get to know me through this program, and I'm grateful for that. And I think that just anybody who comes in a safe place like this, anybody that I brought here has felt at home here.
That's good. That's good.
So what is the most effective support we can give, to our brothers and sisters who are grappling with addiction?
Big question, y'all are asking. The connection is key. Y'all already give love, and that's all you need is love. I hate to sound like a song,
God.
but that's God is love, and that's all we need. And just time and patience, because it's the hardest thing for me to accept love. You know what I mean? It took me some time, and I still, I don't like a bunch of funny, fuzzy feelings. Sometimes make me feel a little funny, you know what I mean? But it's good for the soul, and we need it, and we want it.
Yeah. And we need it. God, we need it.
Yeah.
And we fight what we need. Our city and nation right now are overwhelmed with the opioid crisis. I mean, we can't even get to the airport without seeing it here in Boston, over on what we used to call methadone mile, and now we call it mass and cast. But what can we do? How can we solve that? I mean, that's like hundreds of people, it seems, who are either strung out or trying to get free or whatever. What can we do?
Oof.
Or what one step would you say? I know that's a big question. Maybe it's unfair, but
I think, Safe and Sound is right down there. And we watched it sort of turn from where you could come there for treatment, you could come to the center and be safe, and you could still come to the center and be safe, but they don't really have no treatment there, and they focused on harm reduction. And I'm not knocking it, I'm not knocking giving them needles to be safe. But there's so much less focus on recovery. There's so many less safe places for recovery. I say, to see a problem like that, and there ain't no easy answers. I think one of the things you got to say is it ain't just the opioid addiction, opioid epidemic. It's a substance use epidemic. And the substance use starts in a house in Arlington. You know what I mean? It starts out, on the North Shore. You know, it's everywhere. It's not just there on Molina Cash. It's realizing that, you know, people are using to numb themselves from pain, from trauma, and this is the end result. But it don't start there. It starts in what we would call a safe place. It starts in a home. It starts in the families. You know what I mean? Prevention. You know what I mean? Education, and I think fulfillment. You know what I mean? Is start putting programs in place that give people a direction to go. And if people find a direction that they love, they'll go. They'll go. You know what I mean? They'll leave the drugs alone. They'll go. You know, they just got to be. They've got to be shown that. You know, I don't think a lot of programs right now they're shown. You know, they get them sober for a minute and then they kick them to the curb.
So abiding, staying with them would be
Yeah.
important,
Yeah.
which is what we try to do.
To the one who is lost in addiction right now, what advice would you give them?
I just tell them, don't give up, don't give in. You know, it can get better. You know, as I remember a time when I couldn't see no daylight at all. You know what I mean? And I thought the whole world was against me. You know, but I was blessed enough to have, you know, a pretty good spiritual upbringing to where, you know, family members who I knew loved me and who weren't here anymore, I could hear them speaking to me. You know, you're going to make it through this. You know, you're stronger than this. Keep going. Keep trying. You know, don't give up on yourself.
We may be asking you some tough questions, but you've got some solid answers.
Right.
And we really appreciate you for joining us, Prentice, and we want to thank you. And we want to thank all of you for being with us, and we hope that, I know that something that has been said is going to help you along. I just know that. So continue to join us for Just Between Us, and continue to join us for our weekly Zoom conversations, Can We Talk? Prentice was telling you about what it's done for him, and we think it can do things for all of us. People from all walks of life come in to share their stories of loss, grief, hope, and healing. If you want to learn more about Can We Talk and the Cory Johnson Program, visit our website at rpcsocialimpactctr.org. That's rpcsocialimpactctr.org. Thanks for joining us. Be well.